Today. So excited to have Scott Smith with us. I almost didn't say it right. Scott's been here. Oh, and look who just showed up. Our good friend Harvey. Harvey just showed up. I had just messaged him to say whenever Harvey could be here, it's always appreciated. So great to see you. I had been talking to Scott a little previous to getting started. I guess he and you have not really been introduced, but I thought you guys would be a great pairing because, Scott, how long have you been doing your live stream?
We've been doing it, I think 3 years, something like that.
Okay, and I thought me and Harvey could learn a lot. Scott's been on the show before, I think with Kelle.
Yeah.
And chat's wide open. Today's event, and every day that we can, we're going to have an event now, not just a show, because I think the caliber of the individuals, the value of the information more than merit calling it an event. Some people have an event once a month, once a week. If we've got the people, why not do it Monday through Friday? So thankful for everybody showing up today. Chat's open, like I say. Today's event is the live stream strategy event. So we'll focus most of our thoughts around live streaming and what we're learning and what we would like to learn. So with that, Scott being kind of the new guy on the block, and Dennis just showed up to be another gentleman. Dennis is here every day, always brings the best of the best with him. So happy to see him. Makes my day better. Scott, why don't you share a little bit of what you do and how live streaming affects it?
Yeah, well, so live streaming for me goes back way back into 2005 when we first started doing meetings through, well, I was working at Hewlett Packard, and we had created this high-end video conferencing called Halo Studios. And we did that in cooperation with DreamWorks. So DreamWorks is really good about making things, 2D things, that's whatever's on the screen, look better than it should, right? And then Hewlett Packard, of course, has all of the technical brains, all the engineering behind it. So between the two, we created this worldwide network that didn't operate on the internet. It actually had its own fiber that they had leased around the world. So the power of video conferencing was really instilled. There was just some instances where I learned that what happens in your face is a huge amount of our communication. And when we're just typing or we're just audio, we lose a whole lot of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give one specific example, I was running supply chain operations, and we had operations in Israel they were doing development work, and we were having significant issues with customs, and the people over there they were filling out the information incorrectly, and it could have got Hewlett Packard into huge trouble and delayed the development of a program. And in big businesses, that could be billions of dollars, right? If you don't get it to market soon enough. Well, people had been, emailing, they were calling, but first of all, we have a language barrier, we have accent issues, and then you have these horrible microphones and speakers on telephones, and things weren't getting resolved. Well, the folks in Tel Aviv went into their Halo studio. I went into my Halo studio in Corvallis, Oregon. And in 20 minutes, we came to an understanding because we were basically sitting across the table from each other face to face. And we could understand each other, right? And I could tell if I was talking by reading their face, they weren't understanding it. And so, okay, let me rephrase that. Let me restate that, right? And this is what we can do today. Now, just to give you an idea, those Halo studios in 2005 cost $1 million per room and $35,000 a month to hook up each room. And the first rooms that we sold was to the Coca-Cola company, and they bought 3 of them. So they spent $3 million on their rooms and spent $125,000 a month to hook them up for something that you and I can do for free with a video account right now, right? Go to Google Meets. Crazy world, isn't it?
Well, people don't know what they don't know, and they believe what everybody else around them is doing is what they should be doing. And they compare themselves versus taking the road less traveled, right? Doing things that people have yet to learn about. The nice thing about starting from scratch is you're not giving anything up.
Yeah.
Right? If you say, hey, I can get into artificial intelligence, I can get into live streaming. It's a whole industry. In the past, coming from Detroit, people would have to move to cities for a job, right? If you wanted to get an auto job, you got to get to an auto plant.
Right.
Right? Now the access is wide open. You can be in any industry, no matter where you are, or be a part of it. And I think that's why the live strategy event is so important, is not to just teach people how to do it, but teach people what it is and what it can do. And then somebody's in a better position to decide. And then I decided to simplify and compress. And, everybody typically comes here to do something else or somewhere else with somebody else, right? This is like where you meet and greet and get to know and take off. And I thought, hey, there's too many steps away from where you started. Why not just elevate to where you already are and bring it to a higher level? Then say, hey, let's leave the party and go to another party. So I see that. Dennis is here, like I mentioned. He says live streaming is so much better than live screaming or dead streaming. Sure, Dennis has been in the heating and air conditioning business for 49 years. Got to give him credit. That's a lot of longevity. And it does show he had to reinvent himself about 7 times over that time to stay in business. So I'm sure the business today looks nothing like the business.
And let me pause for a moment because I feel severely underdressed here. Just a second.
You got to get your hat. Yeah, we're getting $1 for everybody we get to put a hat on with us. Oh, okay, earphones.
Well, I had those. I just but yeah, let's get the Stetson on. There we go.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Hey, the price of admission just doubled. Everybody got more than they thought they'd come. Isn't this fun? I think that's the beauty of these shows, is you don't got to squeeze every ounce of knowledge, but you do have to demonstrate who you are as a person.
You just got to dress appropriately, right? I mean, come on, give me a break.
Half of your head almost, And it also, one last thing, is when you're always doing a show every day, sometimes your hair is not the first thing on your mind. So I have to clear that issue. And maybe
we talk about being camera ready, right?
For sure. Well, we'll swing it back to Harvey after we mentioned Carl, just arriving after trying to help solve the problems of rural Colorado. Well, good to be problem solvers, good to take new initiatives and bring some innovation to it. More importantly, have some fun. Life should be more fun than most people are experiencing. So with that, Harvey, and that's why Harvey's so much fun, is he's always so progressive and motivated for change. So Harvey, why don't you share a little bit with Scott, and more importantly, how live streaming, what your vision of it is?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Good to be here. Sorry I was a little late. I was just finishing off. I like your background there. I thought that was a window at one point, but it's a TV, isn't it?
It's a live stream.
Loop? Oh, it is.
That's a live stream, and you may have been there. I've been there. That's the Temple Bar.
Yeah, it felt familiar, you see, but
where's that? London?
That is in Dublin.
Dublin.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it's a live stream with a live stream behind you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very meta thing, right?
I think I might put a TV behind me with a picture of a stream. Now that would be a live stream as well. No, I think it's really interesting what you said about body language and live streaming, because for me and the franchise show that I do, it's about engagement with the franchise industry and engagement with people. And if you take away elements of communication, you take away elements of engagement. And when you've got people in the comments that can at least come up on here, or the three of us, obviously we can see, and Don's nodding there, and you can see when you're looking and when you're not looking. I've been on audio versions of these, which I'm sure we all have, and they've got their advantages, but to not be able to see the faces when people are excited or enthused or serious, and tone of voice and facial features and movement of hands are all really interesting. When I have people on my live stream, you can tell when someone wants to talk. They're almost fidgeting off their chair. You can tell when someone is coming towards the end of something that they want to say. And it's so important to get that rhythm right in that. And I just think it's really important. I mean, my experience of live streaming, I'm the newbie here. So I've been doing it since April last year. And my very first experience of it is with the wonderful Don Cohen here. And, I had a Zoom call with him, and he said, "Do you want to be a guest on my show?" And I thought to myself, that's probably going to be, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ahead. And he said, "Well, how about tomorrow?" And,
That's Don, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, I was terrified. And I remember those first few episodes and those first few shows. I was writing everything down that I thought I needed to say, but it's not about any of us. It's about engaging with people and serving people and adding value. And certainly the franchise show is absolutely about that. All we had to do, I was speaking to somebody today, an absolute veteran of the franchise industry, been in the industry for 40 years. Going to be a guest. It's going to be really exciting. And she said, "Do you want a series of questions pre-planned?" I said, no, look, let's just, the industry, let's just chat and see where it goes and see what people say and really serve the audience. Because I always say that the live streaming is about adding value, and it's absolutely about adding value to the community and truly engaging, which you can't get so much when it's just words. You can write a fascinating article. And I do believe that I think that live streaming can be part of a body of work. You can do a live stream, you can do a podcast.
Absolutely.
And add it to it. But I love the medium of live streaming. And sitting here with two live streaming legends is always a pleasure.
You're too kind, Harvey. But, you bring so many good points to other people's minds. And I think being the facilitator is better than just even being the originator. The other thing I picked up, because I've done 600 of these in about 601 days, and with people just like yourself in all kinds of different areas, because their stories are valuable. It doesn't matter where the story came from. It's the story that was created or remembered. But what I do see is people, because they're so used to not having access and are coming from scarcity, they try to flood people with knowledge that they have in a short period of time, because that's usually what they have, is a short period of time, right? If you're a guest on a show, you might not come back for 5 months or ever. So you got to make your point, I guess, but you really don't. I think the reason why people are so focused on knowledge, they don't know how to entertain. They don't know how to educate and inspire. So, entertainment is first, right? A boring show with great information will get turned off. Somebody's having a ball, someone's bringing great ideas up, is showing they're comfortable, makes everybody comfortable, because it's a natural thing. I mean, so many times you see two people falling all over laughing, crying. They're laughing so hard. You can't stop but laugh yourself without even knowing what it was, because it's the energy, I think Harvey's pointing to, that you generate with somebody. And to Harvey's point, you could see when someone's winding down, but they're not finishing. They're
Someone's looking for their charging cable.
not a problem. They're repeating, they're getting redundant. And I think it's the other people's faces that kind of tell them it's time to move on too. So you get your clues from the audience, you get your clues from the other co-hosts that you're with. And if you have a topic that you're really passionate about and working on every day, like Harvey says, why would I have questions? Questions would give limitations. It would cut you off from the audience response, from the energy, because, hey, here's what I think people want to hear, but hey, it's a party and they're playing this music. That's the music we should be dancing to. So waiting patiently, Scott, what's your new thoughts?
So my wife runs a show so she has the Aging Better Network. And every Wednesday at noon Eastern time, she brings in guests for an hour, and she'll bring in anywhere from 3 to 5 people. And they discuss, it's unscripted conversations on the aspects of aging, right? And there are, I'll just give a little plug for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of work out there around the finances and preparing your estate and transitions, your business, and so forth, right? What she really focuses on is the emotions of getting older. She says no one prepares you for the emotions of getting older as you enter the third of your life, right? So her vision for her show was that you're in a waiting room, and there's 3 or 4 people over in the corner, and they know that you can hear them, and they're just having a conversation. But it's a fascinating conversation because these are experts in their area, right? And so they're just sharing a conversation and you're just listening in. And that is the vision of her show. And that's what she does. Is these experts come in and they just talk about these subjects, and people are listening in. And then, of course, you have the same thing, comments and so forth. But what we found is that when you do a replay, like a best of, you get no engagement, or very little engagement, compared to doing the live show. Mm-hmm. It's just there's something fascinating about that. It's the same content. Well, so yeah, that's the difference.
Well, and here's the thing. If you've got something to say, why wouldn't you say it on the most cost and time efficient vehicle you can find?
Sure.
Right? I mean, we're live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube at the same time. And, you know, what's so important that people don't really put into consideration is the quality of the show when it's done. Mm-hmm. Right? When the next person could see it and say, wow, that was great stuff. It was, you know, because that lends itself to say, I want to see another one of these. You got to earn the next visit by the present show. Right? And if it's a great show and people are stimulated, excited, and enthusiastic, they're going to want to come back the next one and the next one. And eventually they're going to want to tell people about it. And then eventually they're going to want to do something about it. Mm-hmm. But you've got to get into the pattern of waiting for your audience to mature and not forcing it. But I do believe the more aligned you are with your show, with your purpose and passion, and with what you want to do. And I made it very clear, even on the ticker. That's why we're having live stream strategy shows. That's why tomorrow's another live stream strategy show. It's the business to business live stream strategy show. So it attracts people who are into live streaming or into business. You know, you can categorize it and qualify it by the key 5 words you want to attract. So when you do have the show, it's true to the purpose, right? If you say, hey, this is a mental health show, and now we're going to show you how to save money on your taxes, it's like a disconnect. And it also tells everybody, if you're not interested, find somewhere where you are interested. Mm-hmm. Right? If you're looking for a comedy and this is a Western, we're both not wanting to be together right now. right? And I think that's the key, is taking control, being proactive, driving the conversation. The other value about live streaming is our ability to invite guests. That is huge. Like Harvey says, he talked to a legend today. If Harvey would have just found that lady in the phone book, right, and dialed her up or sent her a text, it'd be like, first thing is, I have no knowledge. But if someone says, I've been being aware of you, I've noticed you, I admire you, love to have you on a program that fits your passion, right? All of a sudden, you just got somebody to come on with you that by association will raise your level of recognition. So Harvey, I mean, I think the benefit Harvey brings, he's a great marketing, merchandising, and I think being in franchising, other things, merchandising is key. How do you package? How do you present? I know a lot of people don't like talking in those terms because they don't understand them and don't know how to use them, right? So they go to the opaque view, the sleight of hand, like, you don't know this and I don't know this, and take a chance versus, hey, open kimono. Harvey.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's doing live streaming and the engagement you get compared with other things is really interesting, and it's such a quick and effective way to build a community, a genuine community. People throw that word around, and it does take time to build it, because people tend to turn up and comment on a thing as it becomes more popular and as other people start to comment. So the momentum tends to build, and it builds and builds. And I can speak from experience now that the franchise show that I do, that momentum has been building. Whereas at the beginning I would be sending out lots of messages trying to get somebody interested to be a guest, hoping that some people would show up to watch the live stream, hoping that they would find value from it. Now all of those things have happened. People are turning up, and guests are looking to try and come onto that because they want to be they want a platform where they can add value and where they can add value to a community that they're in. And you can't do it anywhere else. You can't build that sort of engagement. When you take LinkedIn, it's a good professional network of people, and it's a great place to be. And if you worked hard to try and produce a post each week, even each day, but let's say you produced a post once a week and you worked hard on that post, you might get a few people liking it or making a comment, but it's not true engagement. They might just say great post, really agree there, or something along those lines. Whereas when I'm doing the franchise show and people are commenting, that the comments are truly engaging. They're taking the topic and they're asking something that is directed to the show, and the show is then, it's not on a predetermined route. It goes down the path that it goes down because somebody has made a comment that's truly engaged. And I was speaking to someone, and this was really interesting because I was speaking to someone who was a guest host and is also regularly part of the audience. And they spoke of their experience of both. And their experience of being a guest was good, and they enjoyed it. And they'd been on podcasts before, never been on a live stream. And one of the things they said is that they weren't used to it being handed across to the audience like we do. Get a comment in, recognize someone. Oh, that's really interesting. Great that you're here. Explain their expertise. I always do that. If someone comes on and they've written a book about franchise manuals, or they're a franchise expert, I always say, there might be a recruitment expert. And you can, when you're engaging to that degree, then when this person was a host who was then in the audience, they had a completely different experience, which they enjoyed so much. They said when the comment came up that they had made, they felt good. When I read it out, they felt even better. And when we
Right.
started talking about it as host and guest, they thought, well, I'm involved here. I'm going to make another comment. And it's really a way to build a community. I mean, when I look at the analytics, you know, invite 1,000 people, 200 people or thereabouts are registered attendees. When I go to the analytics, there are about 108 people that have viewed it, peak viewership around 31. But that's still good numbers because it's people within the niche that I'm in that are looking at this live stream, and they're getting value from it and they're contributing towards it. And I just can't find another platform that does this. I just can't see another way to build that kind of engagement. You know, in franchising, we often talk about a trust journey, you know, that we're building trust by getting to know somebody. And that takes time. It normally takes several meetings, a lunch meeting, spending a half a day, something like that. Well, with a live stream, you're starting to get to know people. You're starting to build trust with people. You know, the people that are here, we know them. We know them well. They've either been on here, we've had a Zoom together. And you don't get that by clicking like on somebody's post. You know, you get that by genuinely starting to get to know someone. And that can either be done through physical meetings, which are difficult to arrange in terms of timing because people haven't got a lot of time. But they're also difficult to arrange. I mean, the three of us would not be sitting here having a conversation together if it wasn't for, number one, LinkedIn, number two, live streaming. You know, it's facilitated three people from different parts of the world to have a conversation at the same time and engage a community at the same time. You know, when you spoke there, those £1 million rooms at $30,000 a month, you know, you know, and we've got that now at our disposal. You know, we're living in an exciting time, I think. But yeah, that's my thoughts this week.
I think those are terrific thoughts, and you always make me come up with better thoughts than I had before your thoughts came out. So, you know, we get to build off of each other's blocks and not have to just build on our own. I think the key is, you know, being experienced, having lived through a lot of situations that people never lived through. I remember, if you look at marketing, sending out postcards was a big deal, right? That was a direct mail. And you'd have to go out and buy the postcards, which cost a couple pennies, let's say. You had to buy a list that you could use once. You had to buy the stamp. And you had to do all the work and preparation and dump them off at the mailbox, hope the postman delivered them, hope that didn't go into garbage before someone knew what it was. And your hit rate was small, but it was costing you 50, 60 cents a postcard with postage. Well, LinkedIn gives you 1 billion names, doesn't charge you a penny for all these names, this index. They don't care how many times you used a list. They even give you the vehicle to communicate your message to everybody. So there's no mailman or something fell in the garbage. And because people don't have a reference, they don't know how valuable it is, just like Scott's story with these $1 million rooms. You know, if someone would have said back then, hey, look at what you can have for $300-400 a month for the cost of apps that you might have to pay for, and now you've got this, everybody would be tripping over themselves. But here's the interesting thing. This by itself, like I say, Harvey characterized it well. You got LinkedIn as the foundational piece here. You've got live stream as a technology that they engineered and allow you to use. But unless you know best practices, you're just going to be taking advantage of a tailwind until people catch up, versus here's how you do it step by step by step, right? So if we were going to make people pilots and sell them airplanes for free, And all they had to do is go through their training and then go become a co-pilot for a while. To Harvey's point, get the energy, get the feel, find out you're the least important person in the conversation, but you're the most important in creating conversations for the people next to you, for the people around you. And I think that's so important because, you know, when you're passionate about something, you can't wait to talk about it. You need no preparation because you're already talking about what you've been thinking about for the last few hours, and you're glad to get it out there just to get some opinions, or you'll start to cycle that same thing and start to ingrain it. So I think it's really about trust, but the cost of entry is so small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I talk to people about getting their own show, well, this and this, and I say, well, geez, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on stuff that's legacy, that has incremental benefit, has no real future upside. And you didn't ask, hey, it's $900 and I get shows, I get training, and I do it month to month. I mean, that's when you got to look in the mirror and say, am I sincerely serious about what I'm talking about with the people I'm talking about? Is this really my aspiration? I'm telling everybody how excited I am, and I'm not investing in it. And I think that's the critical element. Is Coca-Cola's, somebody had a meeting for $3 million back then, and somebody had the vision, or at least, hey, let's try it. And to the other side of that story, Scott, they were very successful with it. I think that's, why don't you share the result?
Yeah, that was the whole thing with Coke, is that they didn't do video conferencing. They didn't spend the $3 million on the rooms and the monthly hookup fee because they wanted their employees to sleep in their own beds and be able to attend their kids' soccer games, right? The reason they did it was for time to market, because I could come up. We had these document cameras, and so I could come and go into the room and say, okay, here's our new product. What do you think about this? And then Harvey says, well, can you make this font a little bit darker? And so, okay. Now, in the old days, you would have flown from Atlanta to Chicago to New York and back, and taken a day each time and worked on it and come. Now with video, we get together, you meet for 5 minutes. Harvey says, can you make that font a little bit darker? I go back an hour later. What do you think about this? Right? So time to market was, they said if they could get a product to market 3 months before PepsiCo, it meant billions of dollars of future revenue for them. Billions, right? So what's $3 million? That's a small investment. Now, here's the deal with businesses. A lot of times when you're online, you're getting fed advertisements, right? I mean, if you have a business and you're in any social network, you're going to get advertisements, right? And it's going to be, write a book, and sell millions of products, get on stages, sell millions of products, right? Do this, do this thing, right? And you'll get the ones that say, hey, go hire Don and start a live stream and make $1 million. So, and that can be true, but here's the deal. The first thing, the formula is all the same. Solve a problem, get the fact that you solve that problem in front of the people who have that problem, and make money, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so if your audience is on LinkedIn, if they're on YouTube, if they're looking for that stuff, then that's the place you want to be. Every salesperson knows you have to be where your customers are. So live streaming is a great way to do it. And one of the problems with a lot of these programs that you see in your inbox, or advertisements that are delivered to you, is that they are designed for large businesses, right? People who are selling millions of products a day or a month or whatever their scale is. But if you're a small business, if you're me, I can't handle millions of customers or even dozens of customers, right? I just need a handful. 3 or 4 a month is my capacity, right? So if you do live streaming like Harvey and you're reaching a few hundred people, that may seem bad for the Coca-Cola company, right? They'll die if they're only reaching a few hundred people. But for Harvey's business, how many do you need?
Mhm.
Could you handle one a day? Probably not. Could you do one a week? Maybe. All depends on the capacity in your business. So you really need to understand what your business is and say, if I get 3 people who are interested, is that enough? And I will say that for most people out there, that is enough. And so just say, Harvey, this is the barrier to entry is low, right? It's just your willingness to participate. And this is, Don, the greatest time ever to be alive. Because
Go
if
ahead.
you want to broadcast, and I tell you, if you've got a smartphone, you have everything you need today to do a live broadcast, right? I mean, that's it.
Well, you see, we see the light, and we know we were in the dark at one point, right? If someone was said live stream a year or two ago, it'd been like AI, crypto, blockchain. It's all stuff I know is happening, but I don't have any background that says I'm supposed to be there. But you know what? It's something they never taught in school. So when people were going to school to learn all these traditional subjects, someone could have got on LinkedIn and learned live streaming and been way ahead of the curve. The other element of it is doing more with less. And I've always done better doing more business with less players, depending on who they are. I mean, I was attached to Walmart.com for 12 years. And in the beginning, I was our largest third-party seller on that platform. I was the first to come on with 5 others. I'm not bragging, but I'm saying is you got to be at the front end of something that's no one really is into yet, because that's when you get your feet wet. That's where you get to train yourself to get better. So when the show really starts, you're at the front end and people know your name because it's the brand recognition. Just like you say with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, most times in a blind test, most people can't tell them apart. So if it's the same product going to the same market, who's more cost and time efficient with everything they do, right? You don't have to be the best. You have to be the best known for being the best. There's a lot of best players that, just like if you take bourbon, there's a lot of small batch brewers, right? They put out 30 bottles or 50 bottles or whatever, and some are just mass produced. And I think the key is the answer to your question, because every question that creates an answer creates a bigger question with a better answer that if you can figure it out. So you go from the $10 question, like on Jeopardy, up to the 50, is to now collaborate with the people who are there. That's the reason for the shows. I mean, Harvey and Kelle and myself are putting together an ebook for best practices. We're looking at really sharing what we're doing, not telling people what they should do. Too many people say, well, you don't know anything, take everything I'm telling you to do and you're fine, versus no, you'll learn how I learned. So teaching people how to be teachable and how to be open to change is key. But the thing is if Scott, Harvey, Kelle, myself are working separately, independently, collectively, we can build scale, because time efficiency is in pay for performance, just in time. So if you said, hey, I got 3 clients, but I'm overbooked, someone would say, well, I got time, I'll take the 3. Or collectively create a practice, just like in medicine or law, that you have specialists, that you say, hey, this person is really great at promotion. And they have engineered it and they have their spot. And again, a small piece of something big that's stronger based on affiliation and coordination. This show itself is so important that if there wasn't an audience, I'm learning so much. I'm thinking differently because of it. And then when you add the audience, and then when you find out it's not even a static audience, it's not like in a convention center. You make your speech, everybody listens, everybody goes home. This continues to just ripple and build. And, and here's one thing I love. Anybody who's watching, just share where you're watching from, because this is an incredible audience. And I can tell you right now that we've got right now 35 viewers watching this. And I think a lot of it is because people who are involved and interested tend to want to listen more and not write, right? Because they're ingrained in it. Here we got a person, see, as soon as you say something, something happens.
Yeah.
D. Scott Smith, hello from Independence, Oregon. And that's so cool, because just like a tip jar, as soon as you put the first comment up that comes in, everybody starts to feel like they weren't the first. It's always like a dance. Nobody wants to be the first on the floor because they don't want to look obvious or whatever. Plus, the other thing is I invited quite a few people, and that's what events can do. And I know there's people who've been here are here for the first time, maybe their first live stream, aren't that familiar, and are at the back of the room right next to the exit door. But here's Carl. Carl says even static electricity is built up by being in motion. So true. So Scott, this is fascinating. How does this relate to the 3 years of shows you do with Russ? And actually, I'm having Russ back on, and we've got a call. We just had a call. I think Russ is a great guy. And for everybody's benefit, why don't you share your show's name and what it's about?
Yeah, so Russ and I run the Experience live with Russ and Scott, and that's every Wednesday, 7 a.m. on the Pacific Coast, so 10 on the East Coast. And we bring in 2 guests per show, and we run 30 minutes. That's what we say. It always ends up being about 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, is tight as we try to run it. But we bring in people and we say it's a typical talk show. We talk about life and interesting stuff and promote, right? That's today's word for the show here, promote. And, so we'll just talk about, what's interesting and stuff, and then go, Harvey, don't you have a blockbuster movie coming out this spring? Russ, can you roll a clip on that? Right. It's typical talk show stuff, and it's a lot of fun. We get to meet fascinating people from around the world. We just had Bonita Hublier from Australia. She's South African. Her and her husband just a little over a year ago moved down to Australia, and he's a professional pigeon racer. And so how do you find out about these things? Well, you just talk to the most interesting people in the world. And so we've been doing that show. We do have sponsorship, so we get sponsors for the show to come in, and they'll go a month. Sometimes people have gone 6 months or a year. We had a sponsor that bought 2 years actually worth of the show, and so it all depends on what you're doing, but we just love being able to talk to interesting people. The other live stream that we do is a international networking group, and it's one of the reasons why I've got Temple Bar back here, because the third Friday of every month, Alan Hennessy and Alan is just outside of Dublin in Bray, Ireland. We started the Global Tea Break. Actually, it started in 2019, in fall of 2019, and we ran the first official tea break by name in February of 2020. Then the world changed in March of 2020, and it turned out we needed each other more than ever, right? So tomorrow will be our next global tea break, and which started, like I said, back in 2019. So fabulous community, and it's fun when you bring people together. I remember after the very first tea break that we had, the official tea break, we had two people get together. One of them was a web developer that Alan knew in Dublin, and some branding people that I know in Oregon, and they got together and started doing business right away. And I said, I remember telling Alan about that, and I said, "Isn't it great when our children play well together?"
Well, and isn't it great when you could take a little bit of credit for that happening? That it's not just about you, but what you do. So what else do you do? Everybody's just getting to know you. We're always interested. So
Yeah, so some of the different things that I do, I do digital advertising for businesses. So either Meta, that's Facebook and Instagram ads, or Google. So that's search, display, and YouTube advertising. So I run those for businesses, whether they're could be small, like local contractors, and then I've got a couple of national accounts where they're selling into Walmart and Costco and the big stores, and those so the campaigns run from everything from like $500 a month to I think I'm running 3 different campaigns for about $120,000 a month right now. So a big range. So I do that. I do some consulting with small businesses, those that are generally 20 or fewer employees. My background is varied, everything from high-tech, low-tech manufacturing, people management, financial services, agriculture. And so small businesses that need basically a fractional chief of staff, right? Someone that's going to be able to address a variety of issues. And then the other thing that we have is a nonprofit called Advocation. And that is for high school students that are interested in trades. And so we're running a pre-apprenticeship program for students. So they get certain skills and they get job experience in a factory, and so this is all right now we're geared toward manufacturing. So those are a few of the things, and then written a handful of books and developed my own planner, the Independent Planner, which was designed specifically for entrepreneurs as a companion to your digital calendar. And let's see, Business Networking, that's another book. And Freeze, this is the one that I had the mug here.
I was trying to read what was written on the mug there.
Yeah, so this is that's the cover of the book, Freeze, and it's inaction in the face of a business crisis, how to react when the unexpected happens. What we found was, and this goes to the brain science, the amygdala controls a lot of what we do in the face of an emergency, right? And we typically think of fight or flight, right? So the amygdala controls that. The other part of that is freeze, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. And the pandemic is a great example, because when that happened, there were a number of businesses who just went into business owners who went into complaining mode, right? The government's doing too much, or they're not doing enough, or whatever, right? There are people who ran, as the fight. And what they did is a lot of them went into entertainment, right? They're just like binging Netflix and asking, should I get a Disney Plus? What about Hulu? Should I get it in the eye? Right? They're just running from the problem. But what we saw a lot of businesses do, and I remember a local business actually had a sign in their window that basically when the lockdown happened, they said, well, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And they just took a family vacation because that's what they thought it was, right? Small businesses especially can't afford to make mistakes. So when the unexpected happens, and it could be big like the pandemic, could be small like losing your lease, losing a key customer or a key employee. And what happens is you don't want to do the wrong thing, so you do nothing, which is the absolute wrong thing to do. And just to give you an example, when the pandemic happened, when the lockdown happened, March of 2020, a friend of mine called up. His parents had a business that they made all of their money by selling lab supplies to university lab folks by doing these mini trade shows on campus. Well, with the lockdown, they could no longer do that. They were going to lose their business. He says, Scott, do you know anything about virtual trade shows? Well, I had a friend. We collaborated, and oddly enough, we helped his parents, but we also created our own business out of it, doing fundraisers for nonprofits and virtual conferences. So March of 2020 happens. April of 2020, we had our first contract, $15,000 contract with a nonprofit out of Manhattan to run a fundraiser for them, where they raise $1 million. So 15,000, the contract is small. And then for the next 2 years, we were running conferences for the university, for the extension service, and other nonprofit fundraising shows. So this is there in the face of every crisis, there is an opportunity, but you have to be willing to move forward. And the worst thing you can do is freeze and take no action. So that's what that book is about.
Well, that's fascinating. And, that only begs the question of balance. And I think, at the end of the day, we talk about progress and vision and endeavors, but how do you and when do you get truly happy with yourself, with your life, with everything as part of it? And I think that's so important to have either coaching or advising or collaboration groups who can kind of balance you as you go, instead of, I got a major issue. Well, how long has it been taking to get to major? And what parts of it could you have circumvented earlier? And most people only change when they have to, and they fight that even. They see the obvious and they're hoping divine intervention or time, something will take over. How many times did you ever want to terminate an employee and you hope they quit before that happened? Right? And you're so happy that they left before having you to tell them to leave. But, I've never had a situation I dwelled on for a long time that when I finally took action, I knew I should have done it sooner. So if something keeps coming back to you and you're not happy with it, it's not resolved, it starts taking attention and time away from things you need to focus on. So it's not a zero-sum game only. It's not do I do or don't I do, or do I just sit? It's like, what was I about to do? What could I have done? And after a while, you get with a person and you lose your whole mindset and you're good for nothing after that. And you say, hey, not only did I ruin an hour and get frustrated, but now my rest of my day is shot. And now I got to get up for tomorrow. And at a certain point, you catch yourself, and you have a little self-discipline, because everything in life either takes you closer to your goal or further away, right? If you want to eat a banana split every day, it's going to taste great, but it's not going to help your health over time. But there is a point where you say, hey, I'm a great guy today, made a lot of things happen, I'm getting a banana split, So I think it's about degree. Nothing's an absolute, and no thing is going to make you happy if you're not already wanting to be happy and trying to be happy inside. It's an effort. Harvey, we're coming up at top of the hour. We sure covered a lot of ground. Scott sure laid a lot out there for everyone.
Definitely. And I was sitting back and listening because there's some fascinating stuff there. A few things resonated with me, I think. I think with a LinkedIn Live, because with franchising, you're buying time, right? So as a franchisee, when you're deciding to have a business, you're buying the time it's taken a franchisee to create a model you can use. It's the same with LinkedIn Live. You're in terms of getting a message out there, you're buying time into the future. You can do things instantly, just like Scott was saying about Coca-Cola in those early days. They could get that message out there quicker. And I think that's exactly it. I think another thing that I think is really relevant, if you're a talker rather than a typer, right? And I'm one of those, if you were to give me a spreadsheet, I'd run a mile, but you give me a conversation and I'll be there all day. And I think this platform and doing a LinkedIn Live gives people who are talkers rather than typers this opportunity to get their message out there. You know, even when I respond to comments, I do it using the microphone on my phone, which then types it, because I'll see the comment and I'll think in my head and I'll be able to talk and reply to that. Well, it's still me doing it in my words, but not me sitting there typing it. So I think it's really relevant. I also think that doing what we were saying there about doing nothing rather than doing anything. I remember very early on in my career, one of my first sales jobs, and it was me, the CEO, and a secretary, the only 3 employees. When I got there, the CEO said, just to let you know, I'll be on holiday in a couple of weeks. A week later, the secretary said that she was quitting and she left. And I said to the CEO, I said, well, it's just going to be me here. What do you want me to do if something happens? I don't know the business well enough. He said, just make a decision. He said, it doesn't matter if it's wrong. He said, we'll sort that out. He said, but I'd rather you make a decision than just sit there and do nothing, and because things will go wrong if things aren't done in some way. So just get used to making a decision and being responsible for it. Yeah. Exactly. So I think it's a really interesting one as well. I just think that it allows you to move from A to B quicker. You know, whatever, you know, you spoke there, Scott, about whatever your purpose is. How, you know, maybe you're trying to get some new clients, and maybe that's 1 or 2 clients, or maybe you're trying to get a message out there, but it's about getting there quicker. I normally like to do a prop, and I expect I can't find it, but I'm going to do this one instead, because it's still, I've got to do it. People will be disappointed. I was trying to, you know what I was trying to find? I was trying to find my pilot's logbook, because I learned to fly a plane years ago, but I couldn't find it. But all I have found is this, right? Okay. And it's the book that you read when you're learning to drive a car. The reason I picked that is I remember thinking back to when I first got my car, and when I was young, I was obsessed with driving. That's all I wanted to do, drive a car, from about the age of 11. And I thought about it all the time. And I bought a car when I was 16, even though you're not allowed in this country to drive until you're 17, and just used to clean it every day, much to my father's irritation, who had to take that car out to make sure the engine didn't seize. But it opened up the door to independence and other opportunities, because I no longer had to walk anywhere. I could drive somewhere. My world opened up my world when I was a little boy was just the street I grew up in and the block around there, you know, and then I got a bike, and then it became bigger. And then I got a car, and it became even bigger. And I think the other reason why I use this book as well to sort of think about live streaming, it allows you to get somewhere quicker, just like a car does, or what I was going to try to do, a plane, even quicker. And it allows you to go further. And also, if you read a book or you take good professional advice from people who understand how a car works or how a plane works and how you're meant to use one of these vehicles to get to where you want to get, then you're doing it well. And finally, on that, both of these things have seats for a passenger or a co-pilot that come along for the ride. And a journey is always better when you share it with someone else. So there you go. There's a prop for today.
Well, that sure was for a spontaneous prop. It sure was a comprehensive context to it. And I think that's how people learn, is by visuals. Like we talked about facial expressions, like we talked about props, like we're wearing hats. Right? I mean, there's a little bit of entertainment and there should be in everything you do. It's like adding a little sugar to someone's medicine at times, right? And learning to most people is time, trouble, you know, where entertainment is they can't wait to laugh. They can't wait to be with someone who's laughing. And I think that's the thing, is what brightens your day will brighten your life if you do it every day. If you include the people that make you feel smarter, better, stronger for being around them, and that's kind of fractional co-coaching. And I've said it's kind of like co-elevating, right? You get three people on a stage together for an hour with a quality audience, and everybody rises to that level. But if the audience shows up every day, they're a little bit more evolved, they're a little smarter, so the show gets better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you took off in a spacecraft and they're on the launching pad. To Harvey's point, they grabbed a seat. It may not have been the pilot's seat, but maybe being a passenger is even more enjoyable, because all you got to do is sit back and listen, and if you can, watch. And I love to be in front of something that does so much good to so many people in so many ways for an hour's worth of time a day, right? In a physical world, if I had 8 meetings in 8 hours, I'd be bushed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be lucky to have 8 meetings in 8 hours and maintain some level of proficiency. When you get 800 people in an hour from around the globe who are focused on the area, because somebody would have looked at saying, hey, live stream strategy event. That is so nichey, right? Because first of all, it says live stream, which will scare some people off. It says strategy, which is boring to most people. But if you're into live streaming, you want to get right into the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts. And you want to start meeting people, because another thing happened. When I was on Russ's show, Scott was there, Julian was there, and Julian was on the show a week or two, is going on Harvey's show, and wrote me back and said, I'd love to be on another show. So he's coming back with another gentleman. And really, it's gone very, very quality, experience specific people. And where we used to just talk about mindset and, oh, okay, somebody died, here's what happens. Oh, okay, here's how you can look at it. Now it's like, hey, I want to go to work with people who are working. I want to start building with builders. So the time to get to know, trust, and like each other, there's a period. Now, who wants to do some around here? And that's how you find those people. They get attracted to you. So final words, Harvey. I know we're a little bit over, but this deserved a little bit over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think final words for me is to, if you're interested in live streaming and strategy, to talk to people who understand it, and to listen to events like this that give you value about it. And if you want to get more into the details, and there are a lot of details about getting it right and the intricacies, then talk to Don, send Don a message, send me a message. We're here to help in that respect, and to add value, and to share experiences as to how we've grown similar things and how we've reached audiences and engaged with them. So I think my final words is to seek expert advice and ask for help. I think that's where I'd like to end.
That's wonderful, Harvey. And last words, Scott?
Yeah, I just encourage people, contact Don, right? It's scrolling right there in the bottom, doncohenconsulting.com. If you have any interest in live streaming, then give it a try. Be a co-host, be a co-pilot. Join them. That's the best thing you can do. If you want to get a hold of me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, dscottsmith.com. And I encourage people to follow the live stream, the experience. So you can go to theexperience.video. That'll take you right to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. That's good for everybody, and it's free to do. And anyone who is interested in international networking, be a part of our community, the Global Tea Break, at globalteabreak.com.
Sounds great, Scott. And I'm definitely going to have you here more often and make you a bigger part of the family, because you do bring so much value. And more importantly, I always look at the quality of the person, not anything else, because that's something you can't teach. you can't change. You can teach knowledge and all that other stuff. So, I'll give you credit for that plus more. With
That's
that
very
said,
kind.
everybody
Very
go
kind.
back to work, get something done today that's useful. Come back tomorrow and report. Tomorrow it'll be Kelle, and maybe if Harvey's available, that'd be great too. But in the meantime, thank you so much for supporting us and making us better for being with you.